Do you think enough has been done in the last 10 years? 2014 this legislation came, so we have almost completed 10 years. Do you think the goals have been met, or do you think we are moving in the right direction?
Collaboration between organizations is a very important point. Wherever the skill lies, if you team up with them, and you should look at the development of a place holistically, not only your own intervention. I put a tap. Water came or not is another man's job, cannot be the way.
Sir, I find it very interesting, that India is one of the few countries, or perhaps the only country, where the CSR has to be brought in form of legislation and imposed on the corporates in 2014. Whereas across the world, you have some sort of nudging or guidelines and some sort of, persuasion and voluntarily aspect to it. Why do you think it was done? Since you were in Tata heading this CSR for ages, you would know better why the government had to do it, where the corporates not doing sufficient themselves. So they had to bring in a legislation.
I mean, that's a good question. You are right. None of the countries in the world actually have this as part of legislation. In India, many companies have been voluntarily doing. Tatas, of course, are well known. Not only Tatas, Birlas have done, Reliance, so many other companies keep doing. And many small companies in their own locality, they keep doing. But then, when the government looked at the overall scenario, and also the number of NGOs who are working in this field, and the kind of impact which we are getting, they were not matching. And we knew that so many companies, as part of the Ministry of Company Affairs record, are making good profits, and they have the ability to do, and only thing they don't know how to do. So it's not that government, I think, made it a diktat in terms of wanting to impose it, but it is a saying that you people are not able to do. If we bring this legislation, it will ease you. At the same time, it will also supplement the government spending, because the last bridging amount has to come from the point. I mean, that's how the legislation evolved. Of course, it was in discussion for a long time.
Yeah, it was for a long time. I think it takes several years to formulate it.
And then I
understand by imposing it or bringing through legislations, government identified certain areas where if you are clueless what to do with if I want to do something, here are areas where you can work. So I think it paved a pathway where you can work on to achieve your goal of responsibility. And you think enough has been done in the last 10 years? 2014 this legislation came, so we have almost completed 10 years. Do you think the goals have been met, or do you think we are moving in the right direction?
I think that's a right thing to say, that we are moving in the right direction. See, for a country of India's size, it will be very difficult to measure responses, though it started in 2014. In terms of full implementation, I think it started sometime around 2016-17. By the time all the companies could absorb, and they got clarity on what is actually needed. So what has happened is, you should take it about 7 to 8 years, let us say. Rajagopalachari, known as Rajaji, used to use the word, is it fruitful? So he told, it seems it is flowerful. This flower can become a fruit, or it can wilt away and die. But if you really look at this stage, one can only say it is flowerful. There are instances where we have seen significant impacts and changes. But there are areas where, in spite of so much of effort going in, no significant change has really happened. And I think one has to be conscious of the fact that for the size of India, it will be like this, and it will also be dispersed. For example, in certain aspects, in certain parts of the country, the results will be very striking. In some other parts, for the same amount of effort, it may not be striking. So it becomes even more important for us to actually, what we call, topicalize, trying to gauge the felt need of the community, and where government is doing some amount of work, and where the work from the CSR can bridge. There are two ways to approach. Some of the governments prefer that the money is given to them, so that they take care of it. But then government is known not for efficiency, but obviously taking money but not spending it in the right manner. And they actually require the skills of the private sector for good implementation. So with the result, I think, the private sector through CSR can contribute in multiple ways. One is they can actually participate in implementation, okay, where they can bring to bear. For example, in Orissa, if I were to share an example of Tata Steel project, in Kalinga Nagar, a whole area was cleared for a number of steel plants. So Tatas were not the only one, Jindal is there, SR, so many other companies are there. And they knew that this is going to cause a lot of displacement and schools have to be in. So they had a program called 1000 School Project. Okay. And over 1.5 to 2 years, the kind of support which Tata Steel got from Orissa government and the kind of implementation strategy which Tata Steel put on ground, it really took off with a fantastic kind of shape. So it was a big success story. The government was so impressed, they started asking, why don't you do it in other places? Yeah. So there used to be an ad saying that we also make steel.
Yes.
So Mr. Narendran, who was the CEO, he went and told the Chief Minister at that time, Mr. Navin Kumar, sir, we make steel. We also build schools. Don't make us a school building committee. So what I am trying to say is sometimes a very committed organization brings out phenomenal work. For example, if you take water table management and things like that, the Aga Khan Foundation has done so much good work. In many places for improving the local water body, Tatas actually collaborate with them. So one of the things, I think you also mentioned about it in one of your places, saying collaboration between organizations is a very important point. Yes. Wherever the skill lies, if you team up with them, and you should look at the development of a place holistically, not only your own intervention. I put a tap, water came or not is another man's job, cannot be the way. So some of the big success stories, I am sure, are very heartwarming and gives you a lot of hope. Some of the areas obviously make you feel a little sad, but the right approach would be to identify the areas of deficiency and act on it.
No, what I meant by collaboration, where due focus is not given. Like for example, I think go to a place called Darbhanga in Bihar. You have a lot of this Madhubani art forms and other things. Now a corporate maybe in Bangalore or somewhere else, you don't need to be particularly focused only. I think you can help an NGO there so that their products can be marketed, because Bihar there are no industries. So you don't expect any industries in Bihar to meet those objectives. So those things need to be done.
You are very right. That kind of collaboration is also required.
That sort of collaboration is required where you go out of a state, and if there are legal obstacles, that should be sorted out. Similarly, there are a lot of places in Northeast, where you don't have big corporates, but you have a lot of, handicrafts and other things, bamboos and a whole lot of things, Manipur and all other places you go. So those areas, what you require collaboration between NGOs there and maybe a corporate sector in some big metropolitan cities. Two can come together and change the life of people,
Very true, very true. In fact, you brought out a very important point. Very interestingly, see, when we are embarking on such big projects, we go through this problem of getting to the right sweet spot over a time. Yes. You pointed out by saying Bangalore has got a market for a Madhubani painting, but there is no corporate CSR activity in Darbhanga. If only we could get it and do, and can we not go there? But the CSR rule says,
yeah, I know, but
first 5 kilometers.
Yeah, so that's why I told you, we need to maybe amend those rules, there
where appropriate. Yes. Because, but what happens, many of these high-end technical industries have actually gone to a place because the technical need is there. Yes. And they keep looking back at their own base ground. Yes. And don't develop anything in that area. Yes, to prevent that, government did this. Yes. But what you are saying is right, it is cutting it in the wrong side also. Yes. And that is another good point where we have to improve. So like this, there are small points, many of them, where by refining the CSR implementation in multiple ways, we'll be able to achieve much better.
Because this is an evolving thing, 8 years is nothing. It takes years for anything to evolve.
Correct.
But I think we need to if there is if a corporate is settled in Bangalore and he has tons of money which can be spent and he has no place to spend it, I think he should collaborate with another NGO, another corporate, have a bigger plan, which can impact pan India. There could be a pan India implementation of certain things, involving a lot of corporates, and especially in the educational sector, because without changing education, without addressing the needs of the issue, without looking into the facts, there are two problems in education sector. One, people don't go to school, they are not in a position to go to school. The another problem is dropout rates, and dropout rates are very high in many states. So I think both needs to be really tackled if you are not educated society. So whatever you do, whatever affirmative action you bring about, but where those people, if they don't have a skill, if they are not educated, how are you going to accommodate them? So I think the first and foremost, I think, and this challenge can only be tackled, I think, with greater collaboration between corporates.
Very true, very true. In fact, we should pool up our knowledge, choose the right NGOs for implementation who have the local knowledge,
Yes.
and stand behind them to implement. We have had some very successful stories in Karnataka,
Yeah.
in the Gulbarga area, where Tatas floated an organization without calling it a Tata. They called the organization Kalike.
Okay.
Kalike means education. So they were backed by so many organizations, including Mahindras and everybody. They were the anchor partners, but otherwise all the pool of talents, especially on girls' education. Mahindras have done phenomenal work among Muslim children in Hyderabad. So their knowledge was brought in. And Kalike in 5 years showed phenomenal results. Yeah. And it has now become, and it is now able to sustain itself without depending on Tatas.
No,
so that is the way we should try to do.
Another thing, which has always disturbed me, that, the two things where corporates can contribute. And again, this roadmap which the government prepared, government can prepare things, but you know it too well, I think their way of handling things and their way of executing things and the way Babu prepares things sitting in their AC chambers, I think they don't realize the ground reality. So I think, one aspect, if you look at the health sector, a lot of people have a lot of suffering. The health sector has become so costly that people cannot, get themselves treated in many cases. So I was wondering, health and this legal system, where you have to, if you want to go to Supreme Court to contest a case, you will have to sell your house because it's so expensive now. If you hire a good lawyer, he will charge you 2-3 lakh rupees minimum for an appearance, and if you go to compensable, he will charge you not less than 11 lakh rupees. Okay. So why can't we have NGO, corporate sectors coming together and preparing platform, which can provide cheaper legals and medical assistance to people in need. For example, they can have certain number of doctors in every city who can charge you a much concessional fee. Similarly, you can have an advocate on their list who can be approached for attending the needs of people who don't have money, the people who are not in a position to meet those requirements. Don't you think something can be done in this field?
No, you have a very valid point, but actually you are giving me a good idea. See, on the medical side, I am quite aware, because there are so many organizations. There are Kachi Muslims organizations, Boras and all they have created, including in Bangalore, Karunashraya, so many other places. And Tatas are known for their cancer hospital in Calcutta, in Bombay, and then in all the northeastern states, in one stroke they build.
No, I was talking something else.
But
sir.
then legal, nobody
sorry,
has
sir,
done.
sorry for interruption, sir. What I am saying, those hospitals, fine, I think Tatas are doing, everybody knows, I think it's wonderful. If you're a poor man, you can go and get free treatment in Mumbai. Okay, but what I am saying, at level of consultancy, can't you have a panel of doctors who are enlisted by certain corporates or NGOs who can provide much cheaper consultancy to the people, because that is the first basic level of medical service. That's what this is not done.
Correct. No. Actually, Narayan Hridayalaya here does this teleconsulting fairly effectively by setting up number of tele-consultation centers.
Okay.
Similarly, Aravind Eye Hospital for the eye care has done in South India a lot of it. But what you are saying is true. For a general person or a good GP, you don't have that. And it's a good idea which you're saying. And on the legal side, I can tell you, I don't think anybody has addressed it at all.
Yes,
And
nobody
that
has.
needs a
That should be done.
real attention it needs.
Because as a journalist, I see a lot of people come to and we are so helpless, we can't do, but we become more sensitive because we so much see suffering, in our life when you are covering things, and then you start wondering what can be done. So that is how
Actually,
it is.
Justice Department is supposed to have a pro bono set and they can assign a lawyer to attend to it.
But
All
what
that is
happens,
there. But what you are
but
saying
when
is very
you
true.
take this service of these fellows, they are so corrupt that they will join hands with the opposite party and they will make you lose the case.
Correct.
This happens, when
Only
you
in the
rely on government
activist
laws.
cases they are all committed.
Yes.
But for a general public,
No.
there is no real legal voice to represent them. I agree with you. I think that's a very good opportunity for corporates to
Corporate,
work
yes.
on. I find this initiative from Alliance joining hands with Erin a very good part in terms of trying to sensitize people, on how we have to do things new in a not so existing manner, but something different in order to achieve better results. And also involving students as part of this is a good idea because you are planting these seeds in this. That was my opinion. I don't know how you felt it attending this seminar.
I think it was a wonderful session. I think more NGOs could have been invited,
Yeah.
because they are working on the ground. And like one of your students, I think Shivam or whoever, he runs a trust or he's associated with a trust. I think he really pointed out something very good, that you can involve more students and you can channelize their energy to drive a lot of, objectives of different NGOs, So there is I think personally I feel कि Alliance, place like Alliance University, which has thousands of students, I think you people could do a lot of wonderful things, if you people can come together and try to achieve something meaningful. I think this is a very good beginning and I hope it becomes an annual affair and more NGOs are brought together. And also what I would suggest, कि when you have a session like this, set up some goal, some objective.
Exactly.
So a year later, when you meet here, then you must review what did you achieve other than talking, because we all go and talk, but I think it's very important to set realistic goal and try to achieve them.
Correct. The takeaway and the resolutions from a particular day, and then keep following it up. And good thing is they have introduced a subject of CSR in the curriculum itself. So which makes it, it was very interesting for us. Yeah.